Hi again. Let's go ahead and start drawing some basic shapes with the Adobe Illustrator tools. If you look at this toolbox right here, right under the type tool, we have the ellipse tool. Probably you have the rectangle tool. I already worked with it, that's why I see the ellipse tool. So the way to get to the other options is just to click and hold. So just click and hold and then the other options appear. So if we're on the rectangle tool, let's just select that. The shortcut of the rectangle tool is M. So you can be elsewhere using one of the other tools and just hit M, and then it automatically selects the rectangle tool. And obviously this is pretty straightforward. You can click and drag on the stage to draw your rectangle, and depending on the color that you have in your palette, right here in my toolbox I have an orange color for my stroke and no color for my fill. So that's why I end up with a rectangle with an orange stroke and no fill color. Now, as you can see, my rectangle is selected. So in order for me to deselect it, I can just hit Command, the Command key, and then click outside. So that will deselect my rectangle. So if I want to select it again, I can just hit Command A. Command A means, so A stands for all. So if we hit Command A, it will select everything on our artboard. So if I want to change, for example, this rectangle, I want to change the stroke color, basically change the stroke color, or maybe exchange the stroke color with the fill color. So perhaps I want an orange rectangle without any stroke color. So all I have to do is just come to this section of where the color palette is, and you see this little icon of the arrows that says swap fill and stroke. So just click on that and then you'll end up with an orange rectangle with no stroke color. Now, let's say I want to add a specific stroke color to this rectangle. I just need to make sure that my stroke option is in the foreground. You see, if the stroke option is in the background, I won't be able to give a stroke to my rectangle. So right now I can see that the orange fill is in the background and then the stroke is in the foreground. So let me go ahead and pick a color from my color palette. I have these panels open, by the way, and you can get to them by clicking on these little icons. If by any chance they're not visible, you can just find them under window. So for example, color right now is open for me, but if you don't find it, you go to window and then color, and then this panel will open up. So what I want to do is just add a different color for my stroke. So for example, let's say this green. And I can already see a slight thin green around my rectangle. Let me give it some stroke. Let me make it a bit thicker. So I can do that by going to window again, and then I'm looking for stroke, and stroke is right here. So here's the stroke panel, and it's saying that the width is 0.0139. You just click on the arrow to add it up, and then it becomes bigger. Another place where you can find these the options related to whatever is on your artboard is at the top here. So you can either work with the panels on the right or at the top. So as you can see now, I have my rectangle still selected, and it says that my fill color is orange and it has a green stroke. And the width of my stroke is 0.375 inches. Okay, I can do things with the stroke. Maybe I don't want it to be like a linear line. Maybe I want to change it, to some shape. So I can choose, some distorted shape, any graphic style you like, or maybe go under basic, and then choose some other effect like a certain brush stroke. We will cover brushes later on, but just so you know that really it's endless what you can do with these options. So I was still basically, just to remind you, working with the stroke. Let me bring that back up to 0.25 is fine. And so that's it with regards to, the stroke and fill. I can now swap or exchange, if you will, the colors. So perhaps if I want a green rectangle and an orange stroke, I will go ahead and, click on the swap little icon right here, and then the colors will be swapped. Now, what about the size of this rectangle? If we look at the size, what we did is just draw a random rectangle on the artboard. But we have the power to draw a rectangle with the size that we want. Currently, if I select my rectangle, I can look at the info panel right here, which happens to be open for me because I've worked at this before. But to find the info panel, you go again under window, and it's right here, info. There's a check next to it. So that's how you get to the info panel. So the thing is, I drew my rectangle randomly, so I don't honestly know what size it has. But if I look at the info panel, it says it is 3.666 inch wide by a 1.8249 inch high rectangle, and it's also located at these values of the x and y distances from the top left of this of my artboard. So if you would like to know what this means, so when we say x 1.6828, it means it's this distance from here, okay? Because my x0, y0 is the top left corner right here where my cursor is. So that x value is right here, and then the y value 1.9047 is this much. Now this is if I draw a rectangle randomly. What if I want to draw, what if I want to take control of my work? So I want to go ahead and delete this rectangle for now, and then go back to the rectangle tool. You can select it from there or just hit M. And this time, instead of clicking and dragging on the artboard, instead of doing this, I just want to click once. So just click once on the artboard, and this window will show up. And this window is great because it gives me the power to choose the sizes I want for my rectangle. So for example, let's say I want a 2-inch rectangle, and now, so I specify 2 in the width, and I will hit the tab key now to go to the height, and then say 1, for example. So I want a 2-inch by a 1-inch high rectangle, and then hit OK. So there you go. It's great because now I can control exactly the size that I want. And Adobe Illustrator does the math for me. I just need to select the rectangle tool, click once on your artboard, and then specify the size, the width, and the height that you need for your work. Let me go ahead and delete this again. And show you what other options we have along with the rectangle tool. So if I click and hold, I also have the rounded rectangle tool, which is a very nice tool. Let me go ahead and click once on the artboard. It's going to show me the same specifications like the regular rectangle, except that in this case I also have the corner radius, which means that I can give, a specific radius to the edges of my rectangle so that they are rounded edges as opposed to angled edges. So let's say I want to have a rectangle that is 4 inches by 2 inches, and then I want something like a 1-inch corner radius. So let's see how that will look. So there you go. It's almost an ellipse, you see. So if this is too rounded for you, you can control that by just changing the corner radius. So perhaps 1 inch was a lot in this case. So let me go ahead and change that to 0.5. And then that's how, you get this shape And basically the smaller the value of the corner radius, the smaller obviously the rounded edges will end up being. Let me go ahead and delete this again. Click and hold. And let's look at the other tools. So they're basically, variations of each other. The ellipse tool allows us to draw an ellipse. And an important thing to know with regards to the rectangle tool, the ellipse tool, and actually many other tools in the software is that if you basically choose to hold the shift key. So right now I'm using the ellipse tool and I'm drawing an ellipse, like a random ellipse. But if I hold the shift key right now, you see, it transforms into a full circle. There you go. So if I release, I have a full circle. And same thing, if I do the same thing with the rectangle tool, I click and drag to draw a rectangle, but if I hold the shift key, it's going to give me a perfect square. So just so you know that the shift key will basically give you a perfect square or a perfect circle when using the rectangle or the ellipse tool. You can also find other tools under the rectangle tool if you click and hold that, like the polygon and the star tool and so forth. So let's say I go ahead and draw this star. I'm actually holding the shift key because if I don't, it's going to, my hand shakes, it's going to move with my hand. But if I hold the shift key, it's going to be a straight star. So there you go. This is my star, and what I can do with it, perhaps I'd like to change this orange stroke to something else like, let's see, purple. So I have my swatches panel open here. The swatches panel basically shows a default of a set of colors, that are there. And again, it's under the windows right here. So I can choose the purple from there, and perhaps now I want to change the green. So make sure now if you want to change the green of the star, you can't just go ahead and select, let's say if you wanted to change the green to red, if you just click on the red, it's going to change your stroke. So it's really important to make sure that the color you want to change is in the foreground, not in the background. So in this case, I want to change the fill. That's why I have to click once here and have the fill color come in front of the stroke, so that when I go ahead and change my green to red, I'm able to do that. So that's the end of this tutorial. We'll work more with basic shapes in the next one.